With each new day comes a new twist in the West versus Russia crisis. In the latest, the Kremlin has now said that NATO is ramping up Ukraine tensions with its latest deployment of troops. Russia's angry reaction comes after earlier in the day NATO said that its allies have put forces on standby and sent ships and fighter jets to bolster Europe's eastern defences as tensions soar over Russia's military build-up around Ukraine. Issuing a statement, the NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg said, NATO will continue to take all necessary measures to protect and defend all allies, including by reinforcing the eastern part of the alliance. We will always respond to any deterioration of our security environment. The US-led military organization said that it is beefing up its deterrence presence in the Baltic Sea area. Denmark is sending a frigate and deploying F-16 warplanes to Lithuania. Spain will also send warships and could send fighter jets to Bulgaria, while France has said that it is ready to send troops to Bulgaria. Over the weekend, Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania, the NATO countries closest to Russia, all confirmed that they are in fact planning to send US-made anti-tank and anti-aircraft missiles to Ukraine. On rising tensions, the Latvian foreign minister tweeted that we are reaching the point where continuous Russian and Belarusian military build-up in Europe needs to be addressed with appropriate NATO countermeasures. It is time to increase Allied forces' presence in the alliance's eastern flank, both as measures of defence and deterrence. Meanwhile, Ireland has said that the new format of Russian war games off its coast are not welcome. Listen in.
This isn't a time to increase military activity and tension in the context of what's happening with and in Ukraine at the moment. And so I think it's important that I would brief my colleagues on those intentions. Russia, under international law of the sea, can of course undertake military exercises in international water. But the fact that they're choosing to do it on the western borders, if you like, of the EU, off the Irish coast, is something that, in our view, is simply not welcome and not wanted right now, particularly in the coming weeks.
Kavni made the comments at a European Union meet on the Ukraine crisis. Present at these talks, EU's foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, said that a united European bloc stands behind Ukraine and that member countries, along with the US, are all discussing possible sanctions if Russia invades Ukraine. While the Danish foreign minister warned of never-seen-before sanctions if and when Russia invades Ukraine.
Today we will have Blinken at our meeting, Secretary Blinken, to coordinate further steps. There's no doubt we are ready to react forcefully with comprehensive sanctions, never seen before, seen a number of sanctions, if Russia will continue and invade Ukraine again. And it's also very important to say that at the same time we are ready to discuss with our diplomatic track in a coordinated fashion with Russia.
Meanwhile, the United States has ordered family members of its embassy staff in Ukraine to leave the country. Washington has authorized the voluntary departure of its non-essential embassy staff. Other U.S. nationals in eastern Ukraine have also been advised to leave, saying that it will not be in a position to evacuate them after any possible incursion by Moscow. The United States has also advised its citizens against traveling to Russia. The United Kingdom has also followed suit and said that it was withdrawing some staff members and their relatives from its embassy in Ukraine in response to the growing threat from Russia, maintaining that the embassy will remain open for essential work. Reacting to the recent developments, Ukraine has now said that the US's move to evacuate families of its diplomatic staff is premature, while the European Union says that it has no plans to withdraw any diplomatic families as of now. For the latest on the conflict between the West and Russia on Ukraine, we earlier spoke to Stuart Smith from Moscow. Listen into his inputs.
Well, from the Kremlin, all of this is a huge overreaction to a threat that it says does not exist and will not exist. Let's be clear, the Kremlin most recently announced once again that the claims Russia is imminently about to invade Ukraine are empty and unfounded escalation of what is tension created by the West in its sending of support, military support in terms of equipment, economic support in terms of funds, and political support in terms of statements to Ukraine. The Kremlin sees all of this as a situation which is being made worse by these comments from foreign governments, the United States included, about the situation. And we're also seeing an interesting divergence where Ukraine is now frequently downplaying the risk, saying that nothing has materially changed in 8 years. Russia's always been a threat and they have been at war with Russia for that time, and calling the US and UK's departure of certain the families of diplomatic staff and some diplomats on a voluntary basis premature. That's in contrast to what the UK said at the weekend regarding this intelligence report that Russia is planning to change the government in Kyiv, and also what the United States is doing with reports that Joe Biden is considering not sending troops to Ukraine, to be clear, but potentially sending a few thousand troops to NATO member states close to Russia. So on one side we have quite the escalation in rhetoric and planning, and the EU foreign ministers are in Brussels today to talk further about how the European Union countries would respond should Russia invade Ukraine.